Folks, part 2 of the colder water tank setup, going all the way to the initial planning stage. That's coming up right now. The goal of this cold water setup is to keep fish that can handle cooler temperatures, 66 to 74 degrees Fahrenheit. Even though there's a nice clean heater inside the tank in the picture, there won't be any heater in this tank. I'm using Stoney River Premium Aquarium sand for the first time and trying some new lighting and some new plants. In part 1, I mentioned that I didn't wash this aquarium sand, and I should have, and here is why. After a day, there was a lot of particulate matter and dust that got kicked up. So if you're going to use Stoney River Premium Aquarium sand, it doesn't necessarily say you have to wash it. I would definitely wash it a few times so you can avoid this. After 2 days, I did get the tank nice and crystal clear. It did set me back a few days, but I'm glad it happened because I can highlight a product I really like personally for getting a tank nice and clear. It's also a product that's great for just diagnosing the health of your water and to see if there's any trace pollutants that you may not know about inside the water. These sponges are great. It's a premium aquarium sponge. Many of you might be familiar with this product already. It's widely available out on the market, and that is Polyfilter. It removes harmful organics, toxic ammonia, heavy metals, all forms of phosphates and medication after treatment. It's versatile. You can use it in hang-on back filters, canister, wet-dry sumps, under gravel filters. But the coolest thing about it is it changes color based on the organics or pollutants it's absorbing. So it's a great way to just simply test your tank's water quality if you want to throw a pad into your filter at any time and see if it changes color. When you take it out of the package, here on the right-hand side is the clean pad, and you can see on the left-hand side my pad that was in my tank. You can see it's already starting to absorb some of those organics. It's turning light tan to brown. Now if we flip this over, you can see if that pad turns aqua to dark blue, there's copper in the water. If it turns orange, there's iron. If it's bright yellow, it's picking up ammonia. And if it's dark brown, it's picking up organic waste. Now for most of us, we're going to see it turn light tan, progressing to dark brown as it picks up a lot of that organic waste in the water. But again, it's a great tool just to use to put into your filter to see if there's any trace pollutants you might not know about. The color of the pad will tell you that. And you can see my pad here changing from the tan to the brown as it picks up and removes organics from the water column. You can see the difference it makes. Down below here is just a regular aquarium mechanical filtration pad that I had on the bottom of my filter. It's white, it hasn't changed color at all. So having the Polyfilter in there and getting that little bit of color, you know that it's starting to absorb and pick up some of these organics much better than a regular mechanical filter sponge can. Now that's not to say don't use a regular mechanical filter sponge. Polyfilter is expensive, the mechanical sponges are much cheaper, and the mechanical sponges are great for picking up larger particulate matter that gets into your filter. At this point, I'm not cycling the tank. Inside the filter is just mechanical filtration, the sponge and the Polyfilter, so I can clean it up. Now in terms of buying Polyfilter, the best place I found, the good folks at Aquarium Co-op have it for $9.99. I believe last time I checked Amazon it was $11 or $12, so visit the good folks at Aquarium Co-op. Now as I move one of the plants I'm going to use, which I believe is Hygrophila compacta, please correct me if I'm wrong there. I get this from my local fish store. The owner isn't even quite sure what it really is. I think it's Hygrophila compacta. Does great in my tanks. I did want to talk about this bacterial fungus or mold on driftwood you get when you introduce it into a tank. This is nothing to worry about, and it's perfectly natural. Driftwood releases excess nutrients that the fungus likes to feed on, so this is the decomposition process of organic matter being introduced into an oxygen-rich environment. It's just nature being nature. And this can be scrubbed off if you like. You can also use snails that like to feed on it. Fish will pick on it. Eventually, it will all go away. So if you get some of this mold on the driftwood when you put it into the tank, don't be alarmed. It will go away. It's nothing to worry about. And as a final step with the hardscape here, I wanted to add some smooth river stones just to give a little bit of a weight to the substrate and to give it a little bit more of a natural look. These are just stones I got at my local fish store. All you really have to do is soak them in cool water, just rub them off, get any dust off of the stones, and they can go right into the tank. No need to boil them at all. They are all sealed. And that is a type of ceramic sealant around each stone. So it's not going to alter the water chemistry at all. Just like the substrate in each individual granule of this premium aquarium sand is sealed off with a ceramic around it, so are the stones. And I wanted to make sure I placed those all around the substrate, again, to give it a little bit of weight and to give it a little bit more of a natural look. Now, I did notice, and I don't know where he came from, at this point, I had an assistant. I had a foreman watching over the construction process. Now, I don't know if there was an egg inside the hygrophila that hatched, but here was my new assistant. This is the foreman watching over me on this tank build. And I did have the hygrophila in the tank for a couple days. I was trying to figure out where I was going to plant it. This little guy popped up, so I had a little bit of company while I was finishing the tank build. Now on to the initial planting. I'm going to use some plants here that I haven't used before, including a red melon sword and one plant that I was very excited that I found at my local fish store that I've been wanting to have for a while. First is this red melon sword. Now you'll notice it doesn't look too good, but all the outside leaves, those can be trimmed off. What we want to focus on is the middle of the plant, which is nice and healthy. The roots look nice and healthy. So this is a plant that can go in the water. Now this type of sword really is more of a mid-ground sword that can be placed kind of toward the middle of your substrate. I went and planted this in the back. I just wanted to see how tall it's going to be able to grow. I also have some narrow leaf chain sword that I'm going to try to grow, and I wasn't too optimistic about this. It is a foreground plant. I have a 20 tall. Hopefully the lighting will be able to get down and penetrate through enough to get the chain sword to grow. I'm also going to use a Vesuvius sword. This is a plant that I haven't had that I really love the look of. It's more of a mid-ground sword, has those nice curled leaves, beautiful plant. I'm also going to add some green crypt wenti. I've had a lot of different types of wenti before, but I haven't used green yet. Again, another mid-ground type of plant. And here's the plant that I was excited about including. This is tiger lotus. You've probably seen this in a lot of people's tanks and on a lot of websites. The more you trim these down, the more you'll get a fuller look, but they'll always try to send a lily pad or a shoot up to the top of the water. But really excited to have that plant. Once it grows out, it's got some really nice reds to it. And of course, I have what I still believe is the Hygrophila compacta. This has done well in a lot of my other tanks. So this is one plant I have used before, and I know will probably do well in this tank. So with this red melon sword, I did trim all the bad leaves off. We don't want the plant sending energy to the bad leaves. So once all that was trimmed, I do have still a nice healthy plant here. It doesn't look like much now, but that's what root tabs are for, and that's what a little bit of patience is for. So I ended up planting this in the back left-hand corner of the tank. And as I always do, I added some root tabs to get the plant started. Now, if you watch the channel, you know I'm a huge fan of the Nylock G Thrive caps. So I added a few caps around the plant, one on the left, one on the right, to give it a little bit of boost. As the foreman continued to look on my build, I thought he might be a little hungry, so I crushed up some micro pellets, and he actually went for him. So lunchtime for the foreman. So here's kind of the initial setup: red melon sword on the right, the crypts, and then the chain sword in the front with the tiger lotus in the back, and the Vesuvius sword on the back right-hand corner of the tank. Now this chain sword in the front, I'm not optimistic about. I don't know if the Fluval light that I'm trying is going to be strong enough to penetrate all the way down in a 20 tall. We'll see how those plants do. I'm pretty optimistic about the tiger lotus, the red melon sword, the Vesuvius sword, and the crypts, and the Hygrophila compacta. I think all those are going to do fine. I'm not sure about that chain sword in the front, but we'll have to see. And this was the initial planning stage. And I know this video is getting long, so I'm going to end this here. And in part 3, we're going to cycle the tank. We're going to add the first inhabitants, or the cleaning crew. We're also going to add the first cooler water fish to go into this tank. So please stay tuned for that, coming up soon. Folks, if you saw Show Us Your Tanks episode 1, we are still taking submissions for episode 2. If you'd like to show us your tank, simply send an email to dmichaelsfishden@gmail.com. Send in a picture or video of your tank and a description, how long you've been in the hobby, what plants you're keeping, what fish you're keeping, really anything you'd like to tell us. Include your YouTube name or YouTube handle. We'd like to try to do a Show Us Your Tanks episode every month or two if we can. Hopefully you got something out of that video, folks. As always, please like, comment, subscribe for future content, and thanks for watching.